Well, we're 3 days into March, and that just means that the March Madness tournament is about to begin. We're just a few weeks away from Selection Sunday. I've still got conference tournaments to go, but around this time of year, we know that there's a lot of talk about the bubble, right? There are a lot of bubble teams out there fighting for these final bids to get into the NCAA tournament. And so we're going to talk about those teams here tonight. So, according to ESPN, um, the last four in are Santa Clara, Ohio State, New Mexico, and Indiana. That's the last four in. The first four out, these are the first four teams to miss the tournament, to not make it in: Auburn, San Diego State, VCU, and Virginia Tech. All right. And I know CBS and other bracketology, sites have a little bit different, but they're probably all a little bit close to this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, or what I have done is I've put these eight teams, the last four in, first four out, into a list randomizer. And I'm going to randomize the list, and whatever team pops up at the top is the one we're going to talk about and decide, is this team going to make it or not? All right. So let's see what team comes up here first. And first we got Ohio State. All right. So Ohio State is in that last four in category. I think this team makes it into the NCAA tournament. Right now, it's kind of shocking, by the way, how all these teams are fairly close when it comes to KenPom, but Ohio State is the highest out of all of these. All right, Ohio State's sitting at 35 in KenPom, which is a solid number. Solid metrics here. They're 18 and 11. Not a great record, but they have some solid wins. And most recently, they picked up a huge win against Purdue at home. And to win that game on Sunday was really big. They beat Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, who was ranked 24th at the time. Um, they did lose to Wisconsin at another point in this season. Um, they have those two solid wins there, and they have a lot of other games where they were so close, like lost once to North Carolina, by three to Nebraska, by eight to Illinois. So they've had some close calls. Not a ton of great wins on the resume, like you know, in terms of a non-conference. The best wins they've got: Notre Dame, which is not a great team this year. Let's see, no, Northwestern. I was about to say Northwestern, but they're in their league, so I think Notre Dame might be their best non-conference win. West Virginia, probably, they beat them. So it's probably their best non-conference win. So not great wins, but like, again, those wins against Wisconsin and Purdue are really big here. In the last couple of weeks, um, for Ohio State. And I think they picked those wins up. Now I will say this: they've got a game against Indiana to finish the season on Saturday, and that is going to be that might be a play-in game, to be honest. But that's at home for Ohio State, and so I'd lean Ohio State there. But their metrics are better than these other bubble teams. They've got a solid top 15, no, top 10 win against Purdue, top 25 win against Wisconsin. So I'm going to say that Ohio State makes it. And I think they get an at-large bid. They probably will be in that last four grouping there. All right, let's randomize this list again. Let's see who we come up with. Virginia Tech. Okay, so we're on the other end of the spectrum here. In terms of KenPom, out of these eight teams, they're the last ranked team in terms of KenPom. They're at 57, okay? 57. And so that's 20, 20 spots and more than behind Ohio State, okay? And I know they are sitting here at the same record at 18 and 11, actually. But according to these metrics, just not as solid as Ohio State. So looking at their schedule, again, they don't really have, it's kind of the same. They don't have a ton of good wins non-conference. I mean, they beat Providence. It's not a great team this year. Lost to St. Mary's and VCU. They did beat South Carolina, who's not a great team either. So not a ton. Their best win, I mean, they did have a win over number 21 Virginia at the time. They beat them by 10 in the first game of ACC play. That's an impressive win. But they took some ugly losses. You don't want to lose to Wake Forest and Stanford back to back, and they did that. So that's not a great loss there. Those two losses there. Do have another good win against Clemson. Did take a horrible loss to Florida State, 92 to 69. That's bad. All right. And recently lost to North Carolina by 7. They're playing Boston College right now, as we speak, and they're going to win this game. They're up by 9 with, well, it just ended actually. Looks like that just went final. So picked up that win. That's really big. Not in terms of, hey, got a good win. It's you got to avoid the bad loss there. Um, I don't think Virginia Tech makes it. They have to play at Virginia on Saturday. I don't see them winning that game, and at that point, I think you're pretty much you got to win the ACC tournament. If you don't pick up that win, if they beat Virginia, I think you can maybe get in with a couple wins in the ACC tournament as well. But at the very least, I think it's going to take a win at Virginia and a couple wins in the ACC tournament for them to have a shot at it. If they lose to Virginia on Saturday, they've got to win the ACC tournament. I just don't think there's enough here, and some of these losses are really not good. Um, Again, to losing to Stanford and Wake Forest back to back, and one of those being very, very ugly, and Florida State, a really ugly loss. So, you know, I think this team is going to miss out on the tournament this year. Again, worst metrics out of all of these teams as well. So, okay, going back to this list, let's randomize it again. San Diego State. I'm going to be honest, I don't know a ton about San Diego State. They're kind of right in the middle of the pack here at number 42 in Ken Palm. Not terrible. They're 19-9 on the season. So I'm looking here at their schedule. I just don't recall them having any good wins. Um, Look, they have a terrible loss against Troy. It's a Sun Belt team. Gave up 108 points to Troy, and lost that game early in the season. Got obliterated by Michigan by 40 points, 94 to 54. Obviously not good. Lost to Baylor in the non-con. They do have a win against Oregon. Not a good team this year, but still power conference team. Got obliterated by Arizona. So it seems like in these big games they lost. Like the top end teams that they played weren't even close. So even Baylor was a double digit loss. So um, they just don't have any good wins. Like these other teams have at least one or two good wins. I guess their best win is New Mexico. They did beat them one time. Who's also another bubble team. But like, I just don't think there's enough here. They did lose to New Mexico most recently. They've lost to Colorado State and Grand Canyon in the past couple weeks. Just not great losses. I'm kind of shocked they're even being considered here for a bid. They're playing Boise State right now, and they're down by 11. Okay, so if they 12 now, if you lose this game, I think they've got to be done. Like there's got to be no chance that they get in unless they win the conference tournament, of course. But if you lose this game to Boise State, you're done, San Diego State. Sorry. I don't think they make the tournament. They're in the first four out. I think with this loss, if they take this loss to Boise State, that's even more solidified. So let's randomize it again. San Diego State's out. Auburn. Okay, this is a really interesting one. ESPN has them as the last or the first team out of the tournament. Okay. Um. Oh man, this is a one that people are debating right now. Here's the thing. They're number 40 in Ken Palm, so they're kind of right in the middle of these teams, a little bit on the higher end actually of these teams on the bubble here. But they've got 14 losses. All right, like that is a ton of losses. All right, not many teams with 14, 15 losses are going to make the NCAA tournament. But here's the thing with Auburn, their schedule strength, depending on what site you look at, it's like 1, 2, or 3. They've got a really good schedule. They schedule's insane. They played Houston and Michigan and St. John's within like the span of a couple weeks, and Arizona within the span of a couple weeks, and Purdue a couple weeks after that. So like this schedule's insane. Okay, so that they have that going for them with a really good schedule strength, and I think out of all of these bubble teams have the best collection of wins. Okay, when you add them all together, and I'm not saying this is like the most impressive collection of wins, but with these 8 bubble teams, I think it's one of the best resumes in terms of wins. Okay, you beat St. John's in the non-conference. They were number 14 at the time. That's a solid win. They did beat Oregon, which we just mentioned. San Diego State did, or one of these other bubble teams did. Again, Oregon's not great, but still did beat them. In terms of conference play, you beat number 15 Arkansas by 22 points. You got a good win at Florida. That is the best win of any of these bubble teams by far. One of the best wins in the country at Florida, and they beat them almost by double digits. Had that game in hand. You have another, I believe, another quad one win versus Texas. That's definitely quad one or two. And then they beat Kentucky. So, like, I think this collection of wins is better than any of these bubble teams, or definitely one of the best resumes in terms of wins of these bubble teams. They're playing LSU right now. They're up by 7 at halftime. I think it's a given for Auburn that if you lose this game, you're done unless you win the SEC tournament, of course. Here's my thought on Auburn. Um, I don't think they're going to make it. And here's why. I think Auburn, in order to get in, has to win these last two games. You got to beat LSU and you got to beat Alabama at Alabama on Saturday. Okay. And I think you'd have to win one or two games in the SEC tournament in order to win. So like to get in. So you got to beat LSU, got to beat Alabama, and you've got to win at least one or two games in the SEC tournament to have a shot at getting in. That's my opinion. And I just don't see that happening. Like I don't see them beating Alabama at Alabama. Alabama just lost tonight and they're going to be looking to bounce back and kind of have some momentum going into the SEC tournament. It's at Alabama and at a prime time game at 7:30 p.m. So I don't see them doing that. And so if they lose any of these, last two games tonight to LSU or to Alabama, I think they're done. Or unless they win the SEC tournament, of course, I don't see them winning the SEC tournament. Okay, so look, this is a tough season for Bruce Pearl. To have this team kind of pretty much changed completely. Todd Pettiford being the only returner, and then Bruce Pearl retiring right before the season, pretty much. So it's a tough position for him to be in. I don't think he should be fired or anything like that. I just don't see them making it to the NCAA tournament this year. So that's it for the bubble teams here tonight. Hope you enjoyed that. There's still a few other teams out there we didn't talk about, but that's my take on some of these bubble teams so far.